So, wait, not so fast. Everybody here feeling okay? Nobody sickly or ill? Okay, well, that's good news. Good news for you all, because I'm retired. Now, oh no, that won't do. That's way weaker than what I usually drink to get prepared for things. My name is Samuel Preston Miller, Dr. Samuel Preston Miller. And although I spent most of my adult life here in Columbia, I was actually born a little piece out in a little area called Crocus. Any of you all from Crocus? Good. Wonderful place to be. August the 21st, 1864 when I was born out in Crocus. My parents, James Preston and Sarah Ann Miller, of course, although McClure was my mother's maiden name. Fine, fine people they were. Yes, me and my brothers and sisters were very fortunate to have parents like we had. And my father, he was the law over in Russell County for quite some time, served as sheriff. Several terms, as a matter of fact. He also served as postmaster at Millersville. That was back in the 1860s, long about the time I came along. He also served as postmaster at Crocus. That wasn't until 1885. That was the year that the post office there in Crocus was first established. Now, I went to school here in Adair County. Went to school here, then off to college. College of Medicine, University of Louisville. Graduated there 1888, made my way back home. Same year I got back home from college was when me and my wife were married. Susan is how many people knew her, but her name was actually Margaret Susan Pattison. Susan was born and raised in Montpelier. Her parents were Oliver and Mary Bell Pattison. Now her father, known by many as Captain Pattison, you see, he was a very well respected infantry captain during the Civil War. Me and Susan were blessed with 6 wonderful children, 3 sons, 3 daughters, James, Oliver, and Otha, Julia, Mary, and Susan. Now, after Susan and I got married, we settled in Glens Fork, and I practiced medicine out there for quite some time, but we would eventually move into Columbia. And there were several very notable physicians here at that time. You see, you had Dr. Flowers, Dr. Lawrence Nell out Gradyville, and Dr. Allen Mercer. Now, anyone here who knows the Mercers know that they originally came from out Milltown. But Dr. Mercer was actually born and raised here in Breeding, and he practiced here in town. I thought very highly of Dr. Mercer. In fact, I have a feeling, had heart trouble not took him to the grave at the age of 55, he would have done wonders for this community, in terms of modern medicine, that is. Now, I served as the county health officer, starting out 1917, right up until 1932, when Dr. Mercer would actually step in and take over that role from me. You see, the responsibilities of the county health officer were to make sure the streets stayed clean, made sure all the well houses remained sanitary, taken care of. And probably the worst part of the job, we had to oversee and make sure the local privies and outhouses stayed in good shape. You see, I know all of you today, when you're out doing your business and you need to do your business, you can step into a store or restaurant, use public restroom. Public restroom in my day was an outhouse out back of the establishment. And the most commonly, frequently used one here in town was here at the livery stable outside the old hotel. And with everyone in town using them at their own free will, they could become very, very unsanitary in a little no time. Now, Dr. Mercer, when he took over that role, of course, he had just established what would become the first health department here that Columbia ever had, right up here on the square. and he was a lot younger, more fit for the role at that time. After he took over in that role as health officer, I continued on for the rest of my days serving as the county physician. County physicians saw to all the people in the poorhouses, those that didn't have the means for regular medical care, and as well as those that might be lodged in the jail. Now, I continued to serve, to tend to my patients right up until my health completely prevented it. And to be honest with you, that should have came way longer before I let it. You see, I was stubborn and was quite content to work myself to death, and that's quite honestly what I did. And I can remember one instance, one example, and I remember it fondly. I was on a home visit. I'd been called to tend to the husband, the man of the house. He was sick, ailing, nothing serious. He survived, but nonetheless he was sickly at the moment. I had finished my visit. I was in the other room gathering my things. I overheard a conversation between he and his wife. I didn't catch the whole conversation, mind you, but I did hear something he told her in reference to myself. He told his wife, he said, you know, he ought to be in this bed instead of me. He's far worse shape than I am. Now, you all laugh, but he was very correct. In fact, every patient that I seen there on the end, although sickly, was probably in far worse shape than I was. Or that I was in far worse shape than they were. And this continued on until early 1936. Winter was coming to an end, and apparently so was I. I awoke one morning late February and realized I was so weak, so frail, I couldn't even rise out of bed. I stayed confined and bedridden for several days until finally my body, worn to the core like it was, gave up the fight. That was February the 26th, 1936. I had made it 71 long years. Now, I mentioned before my father and my father-in-law, some of the notable things they did in their life. Me and my wife had several kin that was not without notoriety. One of whom that's here close by is my brother-in-law, Arthur. Mr. Ballard, he's right back here. Arthur worked in electricity, which, to be honest with you, I found to be a bunch of foolishness. But he worked at Fort Knox for a while. He was their head electrician. Here locally, he and my sister Molly lived in the very first house, thanks to his expertise, in town that had electricity. The house still stands right up on top of Jamestown Hill. No one lives there, though, now I've noticed. Seems they've turned it into a bank, which I guess if any establishment needs electricity, it might be a bank. Susan and I, now our children, they did very well for themselves as well. See, James, our son, he was a local merchant, operated a taxi service here in town. Oliver followed in my footsteps, became a doctor. Julia married Dr. J.B. Horton. He was a local dentist. Mary, right here in front of me, she was a regent in the local Daughters of the American Revolution chapter. Susan moved to Florida, St. Augustine to be exact, and she taught school. And Otha, well, he was very successful in the cattle business. Now, I would like to ask you all a favor. I want you all to look down at the ground under your feet. Look around at your surroundings. Get familiar and understand the spot where you stand. You see, folks, today holds a somber significance. When my time on the mortal world ended that cold February day, 1936, my wife Susan had become very frail herself and was far from in good health. And I didn't hold down this spot very long here alone. She came here to join me later that year. October the 12th, Susan passed away. Her funeral was the very next day, October the 13th, which I do believe is today's date. So 89 years ago to this very day, a crowd, much like the one I see now, stood here as my wife was laid to rest. I tell you this so that you might understand just how thankful I am for your visit tonight. You see, we've been here long enough that we don't get many visitors these days. Many that would visit are, well, quite frankly, they're in the same shape we're in. But the light's getting a little dim, and I'm sure there's a chilly air to follow. You all probably want to get on your way, and I won't keep you. I just want to thank you for coming out, and I've enjoyed your company tonight, and I hope you've enjoyed mine. So you all enjoy the rest of your evening, and God bless you.